quantum leap or timeline jump, so to speak. And basically, you're just making leaps and bounds in your spiritual evolution. We are turning our wounds into our greatest gifts, and it's quite beautiful. I just got goosebumps. Hey guys, welcome or welcome back. We're doing your new moon total solar eclipse horoscope for the new moon total solar eclipse in the sign of Aries on Monday, April 8th, 2024 at 2:21 p.m. Eastern. That is 11:21 a.m. Pacific time. Now, I know there is a lot of fear-mongering going on about this total solar eclipse, so I want you guys to rest assured that everything is in divine order and there is nothing to fear or worry about with this eclipse. Remember that eclipses are very fated events. They're pre-written, if you will. So there is no need to fear or to spread fear or to be in a state of panic. Whatever is meant to happen will happen, and God and the divine are surely in charge. That said, I will say that this eclipse is definitely a healing catalyst portal. This is going to be a catalyst of events that will take place over the next 6 months as we go into the following eclipse season, which will be in the fall. And this eclipse is conjunct, and when I say conjunct, I mean dead conjunct Chiron. Chiron is our wounded healer asteroid in our solar system. We will dive into that in just a moment, but this is massive healing. And if you are able to transmute any negative or harsher energies around the time of this eclipse, then you are going to make leaps and bounds in your spiritual evolution. This is what some spiritualists will call timeline jumping or quantum leaping. I will say that I got sucked in a little bit to the fear mongering and propaganda for this eclipse, just a little bit. You know, I really don't see anything terrible about this eclipse. Honestly, it's quite a beautiful energy. My goal as an astrologer and a teacher is to help you heal. And that is why this eclipse is so important, because it is conjunct Chiron. It is exactly conjunct Chiron. There is massive healing energies that are available to us to harness and for us to transmute any quote unquote negative energy that we might experience. That said, it is my job and my personal goal to help reduce harm to the collective in any way, shape, or form that I can. So by becoming aware of potentially negative things that could occur in your life or on a collective scale, if you're getting a personal reading, this would be on a more individualistic basis, but my goal is to reduce harm and generate healing. Basically, our entire life is made up of healing, and our goal is to evolve as a soul. And this is what this eclipse is really heavily emphasized on. It is a catalyst of our soul's evolution. All right, guys, so this eclipse is happening at 19 degrees and 24 minutes of the sign of Aries. Remember that Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. You probably know that one, but it is cardinal fire. This is very fiery energy. It's very masculine. This could certainly bring up wounds of toxic masculinity to an extent. This is also wounds within our childlike selves, being that Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It is represented by the first house if we're looking at houses in astrology, and it is when we are birthed into the world. It's very innocent. It is our ego, our sense of self, our survival, our desire, ruled by planet Mars. So the themes of this eclipse are going to be very hyper specific to the individual. That is why it is so important to look at your personal chart and see how it is placed in your chart at 19 degrees of Aries, as well as the cardinal signs, which are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. I would say anywhere from like 15 to 23 degrees. You know, this is an eclipse, so you can keep the orbs a little bit wider. Because Aries is the sign of the self, this could also be distortions of our perception of self or distortions on what we think other people perceive us as. Remember, the opposite polarity where the south node is Libra, and Libra represents our relationships. So there's something here about healing the self through our relationships. We just had our full moon lunar eclipse on March 25th, and that was all about closing out toxic relational cycles and going towards your truest individuality and who you truly are at your core. This is eradicating any wounds within ourselves that still need to be eradicated and basically catapulting us into a new sense of self. Energies are going to be at an all-time high during this eclipse. I mean, during any full moon and new moon, energies are heightened, but especially with eclipses, energy is going to be very potent and emotions are likely to be kind of all over the place, a little bit haywire. With the conjunction to Chiron, we are likely to feel very vulnerable and weak. This is also in the sign of Aries, which is a sign of physicality. And this is when we're coming into the physical world. So physical health problems could certainly be brought up around the time of this eclipse. It's very important to stay grounded and hydrated and focus on taking care of your physical vessel, remembering the mind, body, spirit connection. And also, as emotions are coming up, that we have to actually feel them and not suppress them or bury them deeper. The goal is to get them up and to purge them, to let them go so that we can begin anew. Now, this eclipse is happening in the second decan of Aries, decan. I know that everybody calls it different things. I call it a decan, so don't come at me in the comments. But this is happening in the second decan of Aries, and this decan of Aries is ruled by the sun. The sun is exalted in Aries. It does very well in the sign of Aries. So this is already a good sign. Now, this decan of Aries is also ruled by the Three of Wands tarot card. The Three of Wands tarot card is a card of waiting for your ships to come in. Or if you're looking at it from the opposite way, you can look at it as watching your ships sail away. The Three of Wands is also an indication of the man looking out over the horizon and having hopes for the future. He's making plans for the future, and he's being very tactical and practical about his dreams and his movement forward. He's not being impulsive. He's waiting for the right time to make any action, which goes right along with the themes of this eclipse. If you're looking at it from the opposite direction or reading the cards in the reversed, then this would be having peace with the past. And I think both elements are important to integrate into the lessons of this eclipse. It's also a card about having patience and confidence in your creations and knowing that things are going to be fruitful and you're going to make it to your next milestone at the Four of Wands. You are aware of opportunities on the horizon, as well as you are aware of any potential obstacles that you could encounter. The basis is potential, creation, and progress. All right, now diving into the aspects for this eclipse, I am going to start with, of course, the conjunction to Chiron. This is a dead conjunction, 0 degrees and 0 minute conjunction. It is dead conjunct. There is a heavy emphasis on Chiron, and I personally love Chiron in the natal chart and in astrology in general. I think it is a very important asteroid to look at for us as individuals and us as a collective as a whole. They do call Chiron the key to humanity. I'm not even sure where that term came from or who coined that term, but more or less, it is the key to humanity. Chiron is the wounded healer, and he was named the wounded healer because he was shot in the foot or the hoof, because he's a centaur, by an arrow, and he was unable to heal fast, or he was unable to heal in general. And so basically he went on a journey of searching the entire planet for a cure to cure his injury because he was suffering immensely. There is deep pain rooted in the story of Chiron and where Chiron is in your chart. If you haven't looked and seen where Chiron is in your birth chart by sign and house and aspect, definitely check into that. Maybe I will make a more in-depth video on Chiron wounds and placements of Chiron in a future video. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see that, but definitely check and see where Chiron is in your chart for further context on the wounds that you were innately born with and what you are basically healing in this lifetime. But back to the story of Chiron. Chiron was shot in the foot. He was very wounded and suffering, and basically he set out on a mission to help find a cure and some relief from his suffering. So he searched the whole planet until he was basically a master. He is the master healer. And the gift of Chiron is that our deepest wounds are our greatest gifts. It's actually funny because not too long ago, I read somewhere that Carl Jung actually coined the term wounded healer, and I did not know that. And basically his thought process on this was that the greatest healers have also been hurt the deepest, and you can only help heal people to the amount of pain that you have experienced. So that is why most people on the planet have had some wound in some way, shape, or form, but the most talented and gifted healers on the planet are those that have experienced the most wounding or trauma or hardship in their lives. Basically saying that where we are broken is where the light can enter, and I think that's beautiful. You know that I am a huge advocate of shadow work and seeing both sides of the coin. It's not that that light and dark are differing. They are literally the same. And the amount of darkness that we can acknowledge about ourselves is the amount of light that we can acknowledge and experience in our lives. So there has to be light and dark. There will always be light and dark. And that is why it's not that I have anything against all the love and light. You know, I kind of talk crap about the love and light community sometimes, but it's not, I think their intentions are pure, but that is not the reality of this dimension. We have to have light and dark, otherwise the other one wouldn't exist. So to eradicate darkness, you would eradicate the light as well. Now, with this eclipse being conjunct to Chiron, there is essentially something being eclipsed about our healing journey. This is obviously happening in the sign of Aries. And as we have gone over already several times, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It is our will, our desire, our instinct. It is our animal instinct at that. It is the energy we have, our physical health, our vitality. And there is something here about a light that is being shined, but also eclipsing something. So once this eclipse energy dissipates a little bit, we might be able to see things clearer. This can also generate a lot of vulnerability and discomfort. We might be having lots of anxiety at this time. I don't know why I just got intuitively heart issues for the collective, so just pay attention to that. Mars is the ruler of Aries, and Mars is also a planet of like cutting. So there could be literally lots of surgeries, or just be careful if you're doing anything with like sharp objects. I don't know why I felt the need to say that, but Mars does rule cutting, literal cutting. This could also be cutting off old parts of ourselves. And things from the past are most likely going to be brought up. We're going to be feeling very triggered, so it is important to stay grounded and to transmute the energy, get any excess energy out of us, maybe going for a walk or going for a run or exercising, dance, singing, anything to dispel any excess energy, because energy is going to be very potent. There's going to be lots of it, and it's going to be very on edge. This is about understanding the wounds within ourselves, also understanding the wounds that are within ourselves that have came from our relationships, South Node Libra, and how we have basically projected them into ourselves, or how other people have projected their wounds into us. So we have basically taken on the wounds of other people because we have internalized their projections. This reminds us that our wounds do not define us. Our experiences do not define us. Our traumas do not define us. Our sense of self is seen through God and God alone. Our experiences do not define us. They can only hinder us or basically excel our evolution here on planet Earth and as a soul. They are something that we are seeing subjectively, or hopefully we are, reminding us that we are the observer observing this experience. So anything that we have gone through that has been traumatic and has shaped our psyche in our 3D physical body, in our brain, is not who we truly are, which is part of the divine. This is also letting our wounds be fuel for us to move forward and keep going, whether that's towards our goals in life or what we're trying to achieve or create. You know, Aries is a very action-oriented sign. Now, energy levels could definitely be low around the time of this eclipse just because there's so much happening. But that said, I think if we can transmute this pain or any of the triggers or the wounding that we might be experiencing at this time, we can ultimately use this as fuel and energy to move forward. Now, another thing I wanted to mention was the fact that I was talking about inner childhood wounds, and this is a new moon solar eclipse. So there is an emphasis on mother and father with the sun and the moon. It doesn't even have to be your literal parents, but this could just be aspects of yourself. Where have you not mothered yourself enough? Where have you not nurtured yourself enough? Where have you not been disciplined with yourself enough? And those types of things could be brought up and internalized. Now, this eclipse is conjunct to the North Node, and I'm not going to dive too far into this one, but this is a North Node eclipse. The nodes are the eclipse points, and the nodes are very important. This is basically, as a collective, we're all headed towards the North Node in Aries. South Node is in Libra right now, and we have this sense of purpose or destiny. So there's something tied in here about new beginnings, obviously being a new moon, and our destiny or our mission. And this likely involves some sort of Chiron wound and transmuting that into our purpose or our mission, or to help heal humanity. This is exploring your own unique individual path even if that looks different from what the rest of society wants it to look like or wants your path to look like. This is being true to your authentic path and being sure that it aligns with yourself, your values, and your purpose. This is about finding a way forward, even if you don't see a way forward at this time. Now, Mercury is conjunct to this eclipse as well, and Mercury is at, let me just see here, guys. Mercury is at 24, and this eclipse is at 1924. So Mercury is at 2447. Aries, and it's still a pretty significant aspect at a 5-degree orb. And to me, we know that Mercury is retrograde. Mercury stationed retrograde in the sign of Aries on April 1st, April Fool's Day. And this is really rewriting our story. It is also thinking before we make impulsive action. Mercury in Aries can really speed up the mind. Our mind could be moving a million miles an hour, and it definitely depends on how you usually experience Mercury retrograde. I'm not one to really promote the stereotypical Mercury retrograde themes. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I do experience tech problems and I do experience communication issues during Mercury retrograde. That said, in the sign of Aries, there could definitely be a desire to take action on something before really thinking it through. There is definitely an emphasis on thinking about things and or communicating about things before you make any decisions or take any risky action. I would refrain from taking any risky action at the time of this eclipse just because it's very chaotic energy. Think things through, sleep on it, and don't make any sudden moves if you can. Mercury was also square to Pluto when it's stationed and is still in a square at the time of this eclipse. And when I was looking at this aspect, because that was the only aspect that Mercury was making when it's stationed, and to me, this was some sort of download that we may get on actions that we need to take in order to transform something within ourselves. At the time of this eclipse, this could be some sort of download of information that we could be getting on how to transmute our wounds in order to turn them into some sort of gift or in order to turn them into something that is very healing. Now, that said, a square to Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius to Mercury can definitely kind of infect our mind with darker thoughts. So just be careful about your mind. I could see manifestations coming through very quickly at the time of this eclipse, but if our minds are in the gutter and we're thinking about darker thoughts or we're thinking about things that are quote unquote negative, those things will manifest just as much, if not more, than the light or positive things that you're thinking about. So just be careful with your thoughts, talk nicely to yourself and others, and think before speaking and think before taking any action. Now, the ruler of this eclipse is Mars, because Mars does rule Aries, and Mars is at 13 degrees of Pisces and conjunct Saturn at 14 degrees of Pisces. Now, one thing I want to note, I think it's interesting for the full moon lunar eclipse we had in Libra on March 25th, we had the ruler of that eclipse conjunct to Saturn as well. So there's been this heavy emphasis on Saturnian themes and Saturn and Pisces in general. My slogan for Saturn going through the sign of Pisces has been about spiritual integrity. That said, when we have Mars and Saturn coming together for a conjunction, remember that these are both malefic planets. To me, this is about stamina and patience and kind of blending together the opposing energies of Mars and Saturn. Mars and Saturn are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. They're both malefics, but Saturn is about the long term, the long haul. Mars is very impulsive and wants instant gratification. Saturn wants to teach us a lesson, while Mars just wants to get what he wants to get right away. So there's something here about blending the long term with the short term and finding a middle ground. This is about grit and tenacity and having the patience to endure hardship. This is a potent and calculated execution of action towards something. This is going to be in the Pisces area of your chart. So look to see where 14 and 13 degrees of Pisces is, specifically in which house is ruled by Pisces. But there's something here about taking calculated action and having patience not to take risky action. It is reminding us to dispense our energy wisely and not burn ourselves out too quickly. We need to have discipline and diligence, and we also need to make plans for the future, be responsible, and basically get through any hardships that we might be experiencing. This is a lot of hostile energy when you have Mars and Saturn coming together for a conjunction. That is one of the main reasons why I saw this eclipse as being somewhat hostile and having lots of aggressive energy. Also, it's in the sign of Aries, but Mars and Saturn in a conjunction is very aggressive. So there is certainly a need to attune to our spiritual practices, or at least, pray if you like to pray, or meditate, or do yoga, even exercise. Any of those things can be seen as spiritual. Anything really can be seen as spiritual. Listening to music or doing arts and crafts, anything can be seen as spiritual. It's just really up to you. Look to the house placement of Pisces in your chart to get more context on how you can dispel this anger or where you might be feeling this anger. But there is definitely a lot of potent, angry energy that needs to be released, not necessarily controlled, but Saturn is going to want to restrict that anger, and we all know that when you restrict anger, that is not good. It's a recipe for explosion. You have to expel it over time. I think one thing that's going to be very beneficial for the Mars and Saturn conjunction is that they are sextile to Jupiter at 19 degrees of Taurus, and we know that Jupiter and Uranus are coming together for their conjunction on April 20th of this month, and this is a huge transit. Jupiter and Uranus only come together once every 12 or 13 years, and this is happening at 21 degrees of Taurus. That said, I do think this sextile to Jupiter is really taking a little bit of weight off of Saturn and Mars. And, Jupiter has been doing work, and Uranus has been doing work in the Taurus area of your chart. So look to see what house is ruled by Taurus. But there's something that you have been in it for the long haul on or in. That said, with this sextile to Jupiter and the conjunction of Mars and Saturn, there's something here about seeing blessings from having the grit and tenacity and patience and stamina to basically endure the hardships of Saturn in the Pisces area of your chart. It is kind of lifting the veil and giving you some sort of relief to any hardship or anywhere that you feel burnt out. It's like you have been learning through trial and error, and you're leveraging your past mistakes and your future goals to be able to decide how to move forward and ultimately get something that you want. Now, as I mentioned, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is on April 20th of this month. And the thing about Uranus, I've mentioned this in several videos, is you can never really predict anything with Uranus. It is unpredictable. It's just a rebel. There is no way to really predict what Uranian energy is going to bring. That said, Jupiter is a benefic planet, so there could definitely be an element of surprise blessings, but there is something unexpected nonetheless. There is a very expansive energy with this, but this could also be lots of unexpected financial either gains or windfalls. Be careful with investments over the month of April. You never know how Uranus transits are going to play out. That said, I do think that things could veer on the more positive side of things because it's a conjunction with Jupiter, and Jupiter is the great benefic. That said, you just never know with Uranus. And if I had to bet on who would win in a battle against Uranus and Jupiter, I would be willing to bet Uranus would win. So you never know. You never know. I wouldn't take any risky action, but hey, it's do you. If you want to, go ahead. But there is likely some sort of new road that is opening for the collective, and specifically look to see where Taurus is in your chart. These are sudden changes, and this is wisdom. Jupiter is wisdom. Wisdom that is gained through sudden changes or sudden new experiences. Could also be something that has taken a long time or that has been very slow, suddenly comes to culmination or suddenly manifests for you, and you see huge changes very, very quickly. Uranus and Jupiter, to me, it just reminds me of lightning. I'm seeing the visual of lightning. So that could mean a plethora of things. It could be things just coming lightning fast. It doesn't have to be literal lightning, but This is thinking outside the box and doing things in unique and beneficial ways. Now, getting to some of the more minor aspects for this eclipse, we do have Venus, which is in Aries. Venus is in detriment in Aries at 4 degrees, and Venus is making a sextile to Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius. And to me, this was really about just kind of intensifying our sense of intimacy, whether this is with self in Aries or with other people. Aquarius is a sign of people, and it is a sign of the collective. So this could be really deepening your connection with others or a community of people or friend groups. This could be deepening friendships. This could also be an aspect where superficial relationships are just not going to cut it. It is a sextile, so it is something that you have to put a little bit of work into. It's not as easygoing as a, say, trine, but a sextile from Venus to Pluto, you really want things with meaning. This is also something where if you have any, creative work, this is where you can really put your soul into the work. And that work could quite possibly involve the public or the collective with Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. And then lastly, we do have Venus, which is still technically in a conjunction. It's an out of sign conjunction with Neptune. They came together for their conjunction on April 3rd. But with this still being an orb, it's a 6 degree orb, so it's really not that prominent. But, there's still this Venusian and Neptune kind of dreamy energy going on, only Venus is now in Aries as opposed to in Pisces. So, this can really blur the lines in our relationships where you're wearing rose-colored glasses and not seeing your relationships clearly. So just be careful with that. This can also be being stuck in the past. Pisces and Neptune are both very past-oriented energies, and there is a need to really ground out the energy or expel the energy with Venus in Aries, and not getting too wrapped up in past experiences or portraying something from the past to be, beautiful when it was really toxic, I don't know, but just don't get too caught up in fantasy. Make sure that you're grounding your energy into the present and into reality to kind of dissipate some of that. All right, guys, I think that's all I have for you. I know I went on a little longer than usual, but I had to really speak my mind for this one. I really do like this eclipse. There's nothing to fear with this eclipse. Just stay grounded, expel any excess energy you might have, any anger you might have. You might be triggered around the time of this eclipse, so just remember to let those triggers and those wounds come up so that they can be released, and so you can be renewed again and quite possibly quantum leap or timeline jump, so to speak. And basically you're just making leaps and bounds in your spiritual evolution. We are turning our wounds into our greatest gifts, and it's quite beautiful. I just got goosebumps. So I am wishing you all a beautiful total solar eclipse. Definitely don't miss this one. Go outside and see it, guys. This is going to be the longest duration for the exact totality of the eclipse that I'm pretty sure we've ever seen in this lifetime. We're not going to get another one until, for here in the United States, we won't get another one that's visible in the United States until 2044. And that is ironically the year that Pluto moves into Pisces. So I think this is crazy. Definitely get outside and look at the eclipse. Make sure you have your eclipse glasses on, but it's going to be life-changing. Happy eclipse season. Happy total solar eclipse in Aries, guys. I love you so much. If you guys want to book personal readings with me, please do shoot me an email or a DM on TikTok or Instagram. You guys can sign up for my newsletter. I put a link at the top of my link tree if you would like to do that and stay in contact. They're trying to ban TikTok. So I will see you on the next one, guys. I love you.